Okay, so Trail Adventure Kickoff. I'm going to start with a little welcome here. Our speakers for today, I've already introduced myself, but I will do this so for the recording again. My name is Ashley Zugschwert. My camp name is Sky. I'm the Outdoor Program Coordinator for Girl Scouts of Colorado. Our guest speakers today are Cosmic, one of our outdoor program staff, and Aaliyah Cohen, an equipment designer at the North Face. Some of the logistics for the webinar to talk about. We are recording in speaker view, so there shouldn't be too many girl faces popping up on the recording for when we post to YouTube later. This webinar will be recorded, so if you know some folks that weren't able to jump on today, that's okay. You are still able to watch this later, and you can still be eligible to earn the free badge if you complete all the requirements. The chat box should only be coming to me. Make sure that if you do go to enter in something in the chat box, if it does say everyone, do click on host only, but those should all be coming to me. Please make sure that we are keeping the chat box appropriate, and make sure that all of your questions are for our speakers. We will try to answer everyone's questions. There may be some that we can't get to, but we will try our very best, so please only enter your question once. Okay, and just like with every meeting, we like to start with the Girl Scout Promise and Girl Scout Law, so feel free to follow along with me. On my honor, I will try to serve God and my country, to help people at all times, and to live by the Girl Scout Law. And the Girl Scout Law, I will do my best to be honest and fair, friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, courageous and strong, and responsible for what I say and do, and to respect myself and others, respect authority, use resources wisely, make the world a better place, and be a sister to every Girl Scout. So please keep the Girl Scout Promise and Law in mind as we're going through our webinar today. I'm going to turn it over to Cosmic now. Oh, I'm sorry. This first step in our badge is actually to choose your adventure. So there are some, we're not going to talk too much about this, but there are some activities in the badge for how you might choose your adventure. You're choosing between hiking or trail running. You might already know what you want to try, or this webinar might help you decide. Now I'm going to turn it over to Cosmic to talk about the next step in the badge.
Awesome. Real quick, I see 13 people are waiting to be let in. Can I let them in? Is that allowed? Oh, you got it. You got it. I see. Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure they were all in and ready to go. All right, so I'm going to talk about step 2 of earning the badge, which is plan and prepare. So first things first, you have to decide where you want to go. These are some questions that you can kind of ask yourself when you're trying to decide where you want to go. So the first one is, how far away do you want to go? One thing that you can think about is whether or not your family is maybe going on a trip, or maybe your troop is going to go do something in the mountains. So you can think about things you're already going to do and try and decide whether or not you can fit a hike or a trail run in there. Think about what you want to see. Maybe you want to see something like this beautiful lake in the picture. That's from Magic Sky, one of our camp properties. Maybe you want to see a waterfall, or you want to go hike in the forest. Maybe you're going on a trip where there's deserts. Just think about what kind of things you want to see. Or explore somewhere new or somewhere you've been before. Because a lot of us live in Colorado, we're very fortunate in that you can hike every single trail in Colorado and there's always going to be new things to see. I don't think you could ever hike every single trail. Or you can go explore maybe an open space park you've been, or go somewhere around your neighborhood. These are all things to consider when you're planning where you want to go. Next slide. You can't change the slide, I don't think. Hey, Sky, can you change the slide? Yeah, thank you. All right. So Another part of planning and preparing for your hike is how to find trails. So I love finding new trails, and I have a bunch of different ways you can find trails. So one of the biggest ways that maybe you've already heard of is All Trails. So All Trails is a website that it's really just super user friendly and really easy to find trails on there. So I'm actually going to share my screen real quick because I think the easiest way to explain All Trails is to show you. So I'm going to stop this screen share. I'm going to click on All Trails. So All Trails is a free website. You can create an account on All Trails, or you can use it without an account. And the easiest way to use it is just to go to this Explore tab right here and search for an area in particular. So I used to live in Golden, so I'm going to look up Golden, Colorado, because there's a lot of hikes around there. So when you search an area, it'll bring you to the area on the map. You can hover over the map and it'll like highlight different trails. If you have an account and you use this website to track your hikes, it'll show that you completed it. I don't use it for all of mine, but I guess I used it for this one, so it shows that I've done it. And you can also use these filters up here to select different types of hikes. So say I want to do an easy hike near Golden, then it narrows down my search and it only shows me the ones that are rated as easy. You can also filter by length or elevation gain, so how steep it is. And then there's tons of other things. If you're interested in trail running, there's actually one where you can filter by activity, so you can search running and it'll rule out some of the harder hikes for running. And you can pick one that's closer to what you want to do. So that's all I really have to share with All Trails. It's really super easy to use. Ashley, if you'd like to share your screen again so we can get back to the PowerPoint, but yeah, that's how All Trails works. Sweet. Another website you can use is Hiking Project. This one is run by REI, which is a big outdoor retailer. They have a bunch of different websites for a lot of different things, but they have one for hiking as well. Another way, if you don't always have access to a computer, is you can go to public libraries and town visitor centers and get free maps. So all of these maps in this photo are maps that I got from the Golden Visitor Center. And I just went in there and I took every single map. So they're free. That's what you can go and get as many as you want there. Or if you go to Google and you type in the name of the county that you live in, followed by open space parks, that's the easiest way to find parks that are really close to your house and have maybe some easier trails to start with. Next slide. Cool. So when to go? I honestly think for all times of the year, you should just go early. I know sometimes it gets really cold in the morning, but really going early helps you avoid crowds, which is really important during this era of COVID-19. In the summer, it helps you avoid the heat and thunderstorms in the afternoon. And in the winter, it helps you avoid when the sun goes down too quickly. So these are all really good things to pay attention to. And as an added bonus, you get to see really cool things. So these photos are photos I've taken when I've gone on really early hikes. The one on the bottom, I saw 2 deer on Dakota Ridge Trail. And then this is the sun coming up on Mount Quandary, or like near Mount Quandary. So you get to see really cool things too. So that's an added bonus. And lastly, for plan and prepare, safety. Whether you're going on a hike with one other person or 15 other people in your troop, you should always tell someone where you're going and what trails you're going to take, someone who is not part of your group. So it's just really important. If you use something like All Trails, you can get a link from All Trails to that specific hike and send it to people that you know. That's a really easy way to share. Or if you're picking up paper maps, you could grab a couple copies and give one to someone. And that's just always important because if something goes wrong, someone knows exactly where you're at and they can come help you. And then you're going to want to always bring different things to prevent all these other non-fun things that happen on a hike. So sunburns, you're going to want to bring a hat and sunscreen and sunglasses. Dehydration, lots of water. Even if you think it's like too much water, honestly, you'd rather have more water than find out what happens if you don't have enough. Bug bites. This is another important thing when you're doing research on your hike. You're going to want to see like, oh, am I going to be by some water, or did it rain recently? If that's the case, there might be mosquitoes. Or if you go in some tall grass, like you can see in the picture, there might be some ticks hiding in there. So just be aware of the different types of bugs you could encounter and what to do if that's the case, if you see some of them. And then lastly, blisters. If you get that brand new pair of hiking boots specifically for this badge, maybe don't go on that really big, awesome hike that you're doing to earn this badge with your brand new boots, because that might hurt. So wear them around a little bit first, break them in. And something you can use is called moleskin. And if you start to get hot spots, places on your feet that are hurting because your shoe is rubbing in a weird way, you can use moleskin, and that helps a little bit. But the best way is to break in your boots first. So that is all I have for step 2, plan and prepare. If anyone has any questions, you can send them in the chat box. I don't know if I'm answering them now, but.
If anyone has any questions, now's the time. Go ahead and enter them in to the chat box. What if you get a really big splinter?
Couldn't find my unmute button. If you get a really big splinter, lots of people, I believe, we're talking about first aid a little bit later in the presentation, possibly. But one thing you could bring in your first aid kit, because that's something you should always bring on a hike, is a pair of tweezers. So you can use tweezers to get out a really big splinter. A good question.
How do you deal with burns? Tick bites?
Sunburns? I'm going to assume sunburns. I don't know if you're hiking near a volcano, but I'm going to assume sunburns. Sunburns, you can use aloe vera afterwards. The best thing for sunburns, though, is just prevention. So maybe bringing like a longer sleeve shirt. I have like a hiking shirt that's like a lighter material that's like long sleeves, and picking hikes that are more shady. So the sun gets really intense in Colorado. And tick bites, right? There's different ways to remove ticks. One of them, I think, is like that credit card method where you like take a parent's credit card and kind of get it under the skin. The easiest way, actually, instead of me trying to mime it out over Zoom, would be to Google how to get out a tick. But in my entire life of hiking in Colorado, I have never once had a tick bite. So I don't know if that's the norm, but if you stay on trail, usually ticks like to hang out in like the long grass. So staying on trail is my biggest advice for avoiding ticks.
Cosmic, where do you get boots?
Where do I get boots? I get my boots usually from REI downtown. I like to go, REI is a big outdoor retailer. I think I mentioned them earlier. But there's like a really big one in downtown Denver, and I usually go there and I try on a bunch of different hiking boots to find one that I like. Some people, they like to wear trail running shoes, which I believe Aaliyah is going to talk about different types of shoes and boots to wear, but I like the brand Merrell, and I like a mid-high hiking boot. I don't really know how to say that. Not like super high hiking boot, but not a trail running shoe. I like something right in the middle. So.
Cosmic, how long have you been hiking?
How long have I been hiking? Well, pretty much my whole life, but not, I wouldn't say seriously, but I really got into hiking in like 2016. So like 4 years now I've been hiking. But yeah, I love it. It's super fun.
And last question, what do you do if there are dangerous animals?
Ooh, it depends on the dangerous animal. So a lot of, let's see, depending on where you go, there will be different signs at the trailhead warning you of the types of animals. That's one thing I really like about open space parks is they're very, they tell you like, oh, there's mountain lions in this area. And there's like a sign usually at the trailhead that says what to do. If you go somewhere farther out, you might just want to do some research. Like, for example, I go to Indian Peaks Wilderness a lot, and there are a lot of moose out there. So I've had to learn what to do kind of on my own about what I'm supposed to do if there's a moose. So if you're looking for an example, if there's a moose, you want to, first of all, if it's a mom and a baby, stay away from it. Second of all, put a tree between yourself and the moose. But I have never had a bad encounter with a wild animal. So it's just best to be prepared. Awesome. Thank you for all the questions, everybody. It's super fun to answer them.
Okay, thanks, Cosmic. Now we have step 3, gather your gear. Aaliyah from the North Face is going to talk to us about gear.
Sweet. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so first of all, hi everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you guys. My name is Aaliyah, and it's pronounced Aaliyah, like you see it there. It's a hard one. I'm a designer at the North Face, and if it's outdoors, I love doing it. So I'm really excited to hear about you guys gearing up for your next trail adventure, whether it's running or hiking. I also love to hike myself. My favorite activities are surfing, river rafting, skiing, and mountain biking. Hiking's not on here, but it really should be. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you guys about what to pack for the trail. Before figuring out what you need, you have to think about the conditions of your trip. And so Cosmic talked a bit about this in terms of where you're going, what time of day, weather. All of these things are really important to do your research ahead of time so that you're prepared on the trail. It's always better to have a little bit too much instead of get on the trail and realize you forgot something at home. So some things to consider is how long are you going for? You know, if you're going for a 2-mile trail run and you'll be home in half an hour, maybe you don't have to bring a lunch and 2 liters of water. But if you're going for a longer hike that might take all day, you're definitely going to have to consider some other things like food and water, first aid kit, and maybe a headlamp. How difficult is your trail activity? The reason why I say this is because you want to know what kind of performance shoes or clothing or gear you're going to have. If I'm going on like a casual 2-mile walk, it's pretty flat, I might wear my trail running shoes. But if I know I'm going to tackle a 14er and I might be hopping over boulders, I might opt for a more supportive shoe like an ankle height hiking boot. The most important thing when you're picking shoes or clothing is that you just have to do what's right for you and what's comfortable for you. So I actually have friends that go on 10-day backpacking trips in running sneakers because it totally works for them, and that's great. So just remember, there's no one right option for clothing, gear, shoes. Really doesn't matter what brand you're wearing as long as you're comfortable and it's performing and it's allowing you to stay outside. What is the weather going to be? So if it's really hot, you might want to consider what time am I going, because I don't want to be out at the peak time of sun in the day. If it might rain, you might want to bring an extra layer, a rain jacket. Things like that are important to consider. Hopefully you're not seeing some of the elements that are on the screen here, like a tornado. Maybe you just kind of stay at home and plan your next adventure if that's the case. And then the last thing is, who am I going with? So this is kind of like an odd one, because why does that matter in terms of what to pack? If you're going on a big trip with people, it's really nice to consolidate and share carrying some items. So if you guys can do a group lunch, for example, that's a way to cut down on the amount of weight that everybody is carrying. You might not need a first aid kit per person on the trip. You might just want to make sure you have enough. So all of these things would be considered conditions, which help to inform you what to pack. So now we'll talk about what are some of the things that you can pack. So on the top, I have listed a few of the more priority items. And once again, you might not need all of these things depending on your trail activity. So if it's a short run versus a long trail hike, these items are going to change. The most important thing is, are you going to have things to eat and drink? So if you're out for long enough, you're definitely going to want both of these things. I would suggest always bringing water with you when you're on the trail, no matter how long your trip is going to be. I actually drink a lot of water like a camel, and I bring about 1 liter of water for every hour and a half that I'm out on the trail. That's kind of on the high end, but I think it just, you know how thirsty you get when you're working out and you're outside. And that obviously changes if it's like a nice chilly fall, autumn hike versus middle of the summer hike. And then for food, this could be anything from a bar if you're just going for a long trail run, or a full lunch on the trail. So some of my favorite foods to bring is non-crushable vegetables like peppers or carrots. And also a lot of your local grocery stores have a bulk section, which might not be open now because of COVID, but when it does open back up, that's where I get my favorite trail snacks. So my go-to is dehydrated hummus, which actually looks like a powder. What's great about it is you can just put it in a plastic bag, bring it on the trail, and just add some water from your water bottle, and you mix it up. And then if you bring some carrots, you have a dip, and it's really delicious and it tastes really fresh, especially after a few hours of hiking. Next, you'll want to bring any extra layers that you won't be wearing. So once again, weather is going to inform what kind of layers this is. So if it's going to be cold, you might want to bring an extra fleece layer. You might need a rain jacket. You might need a hat if you think that the sun is going to get higher throughout your trip. And then Cosmic actually mentioned this before, but a first aid kit. So along with bringing a first aid kit, which you should always have on the trail, it's really important also to come prepared with the knowledge to use the first aid kit. So I've actually gone through wilderness first responder training and CPR. You don't need to be certified, but just looking on Google for simple things like how to remove a tick or what if I get burned, those are all really good questions. And it's great to come prepared to the trail with the first aid kit and also knowing how to use it. I also put a headlamp there, which isn't always necessary, but when you do need it, it's really important to have it. So if I got a late start, or even if I don't expect to be on the trail when it's dark, I kind of always have a headlamp in the bottom of my backpack. It's always there just in case you get lost and the sun goes down. It's really great to have it. And then like we mentioned before, having a map in paper form is awesome. A lot of us have great apps on our phones where we can look at our maps through our trip, but having that paper version is great in case your battery dies, you lose your phone. It's just a nice thing to have in case you can't use a digital format of the map. And then just at the bottom, I have a few kind of optional items depending on the conditions of your trip. Sun protection, like sunscreen is great, but nothing is better than a UPF hat. So I actually design headwear at the North Face, and I can tell you that nothing will protect you better than, if you can't stay out of the sun completely, putting a big hat on your head to protect you from the sun that way. And then of course, sunscreen is great to have too. Potentially, you might want bug spray in case you're going to a buggy area, if you're hiking along water, that's always a great idea to have that. I actually just spray myself with eucalyptus, but there's a ton of options out there. You might want to bring a camera. I put this down. I know a lot of people go out with phones. I go out with a phone myself, but I do challenge myself to bring my phone for safety reasons and kind of put it in my bag and forget about it. So I'm not checking my texts or Instagram, emails. And then I actually bring a separate camera because it's great to have something to take a picture with and not have to pull your phone out. And then I also have sunglasses there in case it gets really sunny. And I also put toilet paper down because if you're going out for, a 7-hour hike, you might need toilet paper. So that's important to bring with you. And it's always important to remember The principles of leave no trace. So if you're going to bring toilet paper, that toilet paper needs to come back out with you too. So it's a good idea to bring a bag along for any toilet paper that you do use. Lastly, just some fun random tips that I've learned over the years. I kind of mentioned that when I was talking about toilet paper, but bringing a trash bag is super important, not only for bringing out the trash that you create from, bar wrappers, maybe you unpack a new sunscreen. None of that stuff can be left on the trail. We always want to leave it better than we found it. So I always have a trash bag with me. For smaller trips, I might just bring a tiny Ziploc bag. And as I'm hiking, if I see any of what we call micro trash, like little pieces of trash, it's a great thing to just pick it up, put it in your bag, and you're leaving the trail better for the next hiker that's going to come along. My next tip is that since we're entering autumn, my favorite thing to do when it's a chilly day and I'm on a hike is I actually make hot cocoa at home, and I put it in my thermos and I force myself to not drink it right away, even though I really want to. And then in 2 hours when I'm cold and I'm taking a break on my hike, it's such a treat to have fresh hot cocoa waiting for me. And then lastly, what to wear on the trail. So you can totally wear cotton on the trail. Something that you should know is that cotton, when it gets wet, it stays wet and it's cold. So if you're going to be sweating, or if you're going to be caught in any drizzle, or even if it's just humid, it's usually better to not wear cotton. So I actually love to wear wool. When wool gets wet, it's actually warm on your body. So you don't have to worry about getting cold if you get caught in a little drizzle, especially now that we're entering the colder season. But also polyester, nylon, and any of those other synthetic options are great. And you can find any of those at your local outdoor store. And that wraps up my little intro on what to pack.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Aaliyah. Everyone, if you have questions for Aaliyah, you can enter them into the chat box now.
I got a question that is, what should you do if you lose your phone? I have done this many times, and I'm getting better at it. If you lose your phone while you're hiking, sometimes phones have tracking features on them. So when you get home, you can check your computer for the location of your phone. But before you go home, I would definitely suggest stopping at the ranger station and just letting them know that you lost your phone, and maybe a nice hiker might have found it and turned it into the lost and found. And in regards to what to do when you don't have your phone on the trail, that's why you have your paper map. And also, you've already let a friend or family know where you are. So if you get in any trouble, they know where to find you. Okay, I got 2 more fun questions. Where do you get your dry hummus, and how do you get hiking boots? Okay, so the dry hummus, I get any market with a bulk section typically has powdered hummus. I do think you can also order it online. I get mine at Whole Foods, but it's not very expensive. I just kind of have a liter of it in my cabinet, and I just take a scoop and put it in my Ziploc bag before I go on my hike. And then for hiking boots, well, I work at the North Face, so I'm very lucky to have the option to get our brand's boots, but I also love Keen and Merrell boots. And I usually get them at a local outdoor store or REI. The most important thing with outdoor boots, hiking boots, trail runners, anything of that sort, is go try them on. I actually order a lot of stuff online. This is one of those things that I go and I put my foot in it because everyone's feet are different. And the last thing you want to do is buy these really awesome boots you're excited to wear, and then you get blisters while you're on the trail. Okay. If you bring hot cocoa, how does it stay warm? That's a great question. So you're going to have to put it in a thermos that's insulated. So a regular water bottle isn't going to do the trick. A metal thermos, such as ones made by Yeti, or I'm blanking on names, but you could just go to TJ Maxx or Marshall's has a great assortment of really inexpensive and cute thermoses. But I personally have a Hydro Flask thermos. What do you do if you use up all your water? I love that question because it means you're thinking about being prepared and planning for if things go awry, which they do sometimes. I would say if you are going, if you're running out of water, you're going to know that you're going to be running out of water before you run out of water, right? So like while you're drinking, you're going to realize, oh, I only have half a bottle left, but I have 6 more miles to go. That doesn't sound like a good plan. So at that point, you might turn around. If you have a water filter with you and you're by a source of water where you can use it and you know how to do that, great, then you can keep going. But I would say while you're drinking and eating throughout your trip, always keep a gauge on how much you have left because you might need to turn around if that's the case, and then next time you bring more water. And what is the best type of fabric to wear for hikes? So my favorite fabric is wool, but I also wear polyester and nylon. If I'm going for, a 20-minute trail run, I might not worry about it and just wear cotton. But anything more serious, I like to have something a bit more technical in performance, and wool is a great option, or a wool blended with something else like polyester, for example. What should you pack for your dog? I wish I had a dog. I would be more prepared to answer that question. But I would imagine a dog, just like a human, wants kind of the same things. They want to be warm, they want to be fed, and they want to be hydrated. So I would make sure that if you're going for so long that your dog is going to get thirsty or hungry, you need to be prepared for that. How about bringing wipes? That's a great question. So I don't bring wipes if I'm going for a short trail activity, but if it's an all-day thing, I definitely bring wipes, especially right now when we're all super concerned about keeping our hands clean before we have our trail lunch. It's a great thing to use your wipes. I would say if you're going to bring wipes, make sure that you have a way to bring them home with you. So always bring a Ziploc bag to carry your trash out. Let's see. Do I hike a lot? I do hike a lot. I love to hike. It's a great activity to do with my friends and family. And one of my favorite things about the activity is that so many people love to do it. So it's a great way to make new friends. Let's see. What do you do when you need to use the bathroom? That's a great question. I am a professional forest peer. It comes with the territory. If you hike enough, you'll get very comfortable doing it. The important thing to know is that if you're going to be out on the trail for a long time, it's totally understandable if you need to go to the bathroom. That's what humans do when, hours are passing by. So there's nothing to be shy about when it comes to that. Something to be aware of is that you never want to pee on the trail or even near it. So it's always good to take a few steps. You want to be a few yards away from any trail or any water source if you're going to use the bathroom. And then, like I had mentioned, if you want to use toilet paper instead of just shake off, that's totally okay. You just need to take your toilet paper out with you. A lot of people think that toilet paper will kind of decompose naturally, and it will eventually, but if we all left toilet paper on the trail, it would just look like a bathroom. So bring it out with you. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up. I'm getting a lot of good questions. Should I wear a mask if we are in groups? Well, this is my personal opinion, but absolutely. So even though we're outside and we're used to wearing masks in public spaces like in grocery stores, nothing changes while we're on the trail. So if you're with your mom or a family member on the trail and you don't feel the need to wear masks together, that's okay, but it's the right thing to do to have a mask with you in case somebody else is passing you on the trail. And if you don't have a mask, the right thing to do would be to step off the trail and give that person the space that they need. What do you do if it's snowing hard? Well, Snow hiking is a whole different talk, which I would be happy to be invited to if that happens. Hopefully you check the weather, but mistakes happen. And also Colorado is crazy. So sometimes it just surprises us out of nowhere. It's good to take shelter. You know, we have natural shelter in our trees. We might want to take out whatever layer that we've packed in our bag. And then also play it by ear. Like in the moment, that's when you check in with your crew and say, are we comfortable continuing, or do we need to turn around and go back? I'm feeling kind of cold. You never want to get cold. It's better to make the decision to turn around when you think you might get cold. Because if you're cold, then it's already too late. Okay, so I have 2 more questions. Hard to select because they're all so great. Okay. Do I go running in a group? Okay, so honestly, I'm a little shy when it comes to running because I'm not very good at it. So in the past, I've been a little worried about running with people, but recently I started running with 2 of my girlfriends, and I have to say it's been really good for me. They're both faster than me, but it encourages me to push myself, and more importantly, it just gets me out the door so I can show up and know that my friends are waiting for me. And I think also like safety in numbers with everything. So running in a group, especially on the trail, is a great idea. And then my last question will be, how do you sanitize after you go to the bathroom on the trail? It's a great question, and I should have mentioned, I usually have a very small bottle of hand sanitizer with me, and that was even before COVID. It's really important to sanitize your hands after you go to the bathroom, even if you're outside. You know, I know you're on the trail getting dirty, but after the bathroom, it's good to sanitize, especially if you're about to make yourself a yummy trail snack. Cool.
Okay, thank you so much, Aaliyah. I'm jumping back on our PowerPoint here. How's everyone feeling? We're doing great. We're on to step 4. We're handing it back off to Cosmic.
All right, awesome. Also, I just realized after I was done answering questions that a couple people had sent me questions, and one that I thought was really good was, how do we get to the websites? I believe Ashley is going to be sending in about a week or so, like a link to the recording. I could maybe include some links like how to remove a tick or all trails. So she'll be sending a follow-up then. I just wanted to touch on that. Those were good questions. So yes, so step 4 is all about training for your adventure. So the first thing, I know this looks kind of silly because I've written eat and hydrate before, eat and hydrate during, eat and hydrate after, but I'm like, I seriously mean it. So let's see, if I don't eat before, during, or after my hike, I get a headache. Or if I don't drink water before, during, or after, I get a headache. So I don't know how everyone is, but for me, if I don't take good care of myself, my body punishes me. So I always make sure, so before I go on a hike, I eat like a hearty breakfast, nothing like too giant, not the biggest breakfast in the world, but also not donuts. I've done some hikes on donuts before. It's not fun. Eat something like even just like a microwave burrito, or like some eggs, or even just a granola bar, something that isn't super sugary, but it's still a little bit hearty. A lot of people recommend don't eat a ton of dairy before because it makes your stomach hurt. And then I like to drink a cup of water with breakfast, or like I drink a quarter of my water, like a water bottle, on the drive up to a hike. And that helps keep me hydrated. I don't think any of you are old enough to drink coffee, but don't drink coffee before a hike because caffeine really dehydrates you. Or don't drink soda before you go on a hike or a run because it makes it harder for your body to take in water. During the hike, bring some snacks and a bunch of water for while the hike is happening. Usually if I'm starting to feel a little poopy on a hike, it's because I either haven't had enough water or had enough to eat. So always make sure you're taking care of yourself, stopping when you need to. And after the hike, go reward yourself by like having lunch with your family, or eat a snack after you're done. So just, and keep drinking water. Oh, sorry, I'm getting all these questions. I'm getting distracted. I'm gonna have to close this and then come back to it. So yeah, just make sure you're like eating and hydrating the whole time. That's my biggest point. This picture on the right is from when we went on an outdoor adventure club hike with Girl Scouts, and we were preparing all of our food the night before. So I just thought that was cool. Setting training goals and creating training plans. So I know not all of you on your badges are required to do this, but I think it's really great to get to build up to like a really cool hike or really like a longer trail run. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I love tracking my hikes and keeping track of what I've done. So I'm going to talk a little bit because I think it's fun. So one thing I use is Strava. So if you or a parent have a device with GPS in it, you can use that to track your hikes or your trail runs. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. I'm also going to say there's lots of ways, if you don't have technology, to keep track of the hikes that you've done. So Ashley, if you can go on to the next slide. So yeah, these are 2 ways to keep track of your hikes or trail runs. I'm sorry, I'm mostly a hiker, so I keep saying hikes, but I mean both things. These are some ways, I use all of these ways to keep track of my hikes because I'm a little crazy and I think it's really fun to look back on. So one thing that I do to track them is I have an Excel sheet with all of my hikes in it that I've done in the past 5 years or so. And you can do this in a notebook too, you don't need a computer. I just have the name of the hike, I have the date, I have the distance that I hiked, and then the elevation gain, and then any little notes that I cut off, but you didn't need to see my notes on the hike. That's just an additional thing. And I use this to see kind of my goal when I hike is if someone asks me, hey, do you want to go on this hike? I want to be able to say, yes, I can go on that hike. So I just try and hike as much as I can. And I like to use this as a way to kind of see how I've built up to those goals. Sometimes people will invite me to go and hike a 14er and I need to prepare a little bit more for that. So I'll set little goals along the way. This on the right is another way I keep track of my hikes. So I do love paper maps as well as digital ones. This is a picture of a map from Rocky Mountain National Park. Usually when I go on a hike, I get 2 copies of the map, and I have one that I use to keep track of the hikes I've done in like a specific park, and I use the other one for actual navigation. So this is the one that I have for Rocky, and the red lines are hikes that I've done or backpacking trips that I've done there. So that's another way I keep track of the ones that I've done. Go on to the next one. Yes, this is a picture from Strava. So I have a little GPS watch that I use to track my hikes, but you can also do this with your phone or a parent's phone. One thing to keep in mind, if you use the GPS on your phone during a hike, it drains the battery. So either bring a little charging pack if you're going to attempt to do something like this, or if you have like 2 adults that you're going with, or you have a phone and the adult has a phone, use one for tracking and one for emergencies. That's what I recommend. But Strava is really cool because it gives you all kinds of data about your hike. So this was when I hiked it up to Lake Dorothy in Indian Peaks Wilderness. It breaks down mile by mile how fast I went and how much elevation I gained or lost, which is cool information to know. And it shows me visually an elevation profile. And then this blue line is my pace throughout the hike. So I stop a lot and take pictures. I brought my camera on this one. So that's why the pace goes up and down a lot. But you can use things like this to set goals. Like, for example, if your goal is to do a hike that has 2,000 feet in elevation gain, you might want to start by doing hikes that have like 500 and then 1,000 before you do 2,000 feet. So using something like this to figure out how much you've actually done is really helpful in achieving that goal. If you go on to the next slide, this is just something that I do for fun because I'm a huge nerd. Whenever I record something on Strava, I then take that GPS data and I put it in Google Earth because I want to know on the Earth where I've hiked. So I have like over 200 hikes on Google Earth, and then I could just like fly around on the earth and see where I've hiked. Most of it's in Colorado, but eventually it will be in other places too. So I just thought that was fun and I wanted to share that with you guys. The last thing, don't forget about warm-up activities and cool-down activities. So this is a picture from when we hiked Mount Quandary with the Outdoor Adventure Club with Girl Scouts. This is our friend Sunshine leading us in some morning calisthenics in the purple. And we were all kind of laughing about it, but it is important that you do some stretches before you go on a hike. I'm sure many of you know, if you play any sports, your coaches always make you stretch before, and maybe you're like, oh, this is kind of boring, but it's very important because it just helps your body get warmed up. I'm not going to go through too many like specific stretches, but you can kind of do whatever works for you. I know some people like to do a lot of stretching before, some people don't. And one thing I often forget about is cool down activities. So if you go for a long hike, usually something that I'm really guilty of is the first thing I do after a long hike is I just get back in the car and then I sit for like an hour as I'm driving back. And then by the time I'm back, my legs hurt so bad because I just sat and I didn't do anything for a long time. So it's really nice to kind of like, you know, do a lap around the parking lot after you've done like nice slow walking pace. I often get sore the next day after I've slept for a long time. So one thing you can do for active recovery is if you went on a hike in the morning, you can maybe go for a walk around your neighborhood in the afternoon, or same with if you go for a run. Running, there's a lot of training plans will suggest that you do like a warm up and a cool down, like right before the run and right after. So if that's something you're interested in, I would recommend doing like you don't want to be sprinting the whole time. You can do like a slow jog to warm up, and then you can sprint for a little bit, and then you do like a walk or a jog to cool down. So yeah, I think I have some questions now. Now I'm going to look at them. Let's see. Oh, I've got some good ones. Oh, somebody said cool with a bunch of exclamation points. Thank you. I also think it's cool. I don't know what that was about, but thank you. I appreciate it. Let's see. Girls would like to know how much longer. Till 6 p.m. 6 p.m. is how long this webinar goes, possibly a little bit earlier. Can you eat cereal before you go on a hike? Yes, you can. I do sometimes. I try to avoid dairy, like I said, but it's okay if that's like all you got. Cereal's totally fine. What happens when animals take your food? I have not had that happen yet, but don't feed animals when you go out, because then that kind of encourages animals in the future to take your food. So I know that's kind of weird. Let's see. I can't eat dairy. Well, then you won't have a problem avoiding dairy. Have you ever hiked a 14er? Yes, Mount Quandary was a 14er, and I hiked it with Girl Scouts. I've actually hiked 8 14ers now, which is pretty fun. So I'm sorry. I'm like trying. It's like overload. I have so many questions. What happens if you don't have a GPS device? That is okay. That is why paper maps exist. Paper maps are great, and you can use them to track your hike. You can use them to share your hike with other people. Really good things. Let's see. So many questions. I love it. What if you forget water? Turn around. Or if you bring a little water filter, you can filter some water on the trail. Let's see. I'll take like a few more questions. I saw one that looked good. I'm sorry. What trails do you prefer to go on? That's like a hard question because I love like every single trail. I love hiking. I guess trails I prefer to go on, I like to go on hikes that are not too long, I don't know, between 5 and 9 miles is like my preferred hike. I really like to go to wilderness areas, but they're a little farther away. And I have a Colorado State Parks pass, so I love state parks. Those are really good places to go hiking. State parks and open space parks are great for like resources ahead of time. So if you want to plan your hike, they always have really good maps, and they always have good information about like the surrounding area and what animals you might encounter. If you're on a long hike with kids, should you take frequent breaks? Yes. I actually, on Sunday, I taught the Trail Adventure badge to a group of Brownies, and we took a lot of breaks, and it was super fun. That was just part of it. We played a lot of trail games. We talked about the 10 essentials. So I would definitely recommend taking breaks. Let's see, how often do you take breaks? Really just depends on the age and how people are doing. So the hike I took the girls on was about a mile total, and we took. I'm so sorry. This is my cat. Everybody, get out of here. Okay. Sorry. Let's see. Oh my God. Okay, I'm gonna close the Zoom group chat because I'm getting very distracted. I'm so sorry. Let's see. We took about 3 breaks on the way up and 1 break on the way down. One thing when you're hiking with younger groups is to give them something to do on the hike. So we did like a mindful minute on our hike this past weekend where we took a break. I told everyone, hey, like, no talking for a minute, just hear what you hear, see what you see, and then we stopped again after that minute to talk about it. So part of, actually, I think all 3 age groups, a lot of the badges have activities you can do while you're on the hike. So those are great things to do when you're stopped for your breaks. Let's see, I will take one more question. Let's see. I wish I could tell you how many trails I've gone on. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. What do you do if a fire starts? This is a question that we're all thinking about right now because there's a lot of wildfires in Colorado. Let's see. It really depends if it's like a big wildfire. Wildfires tend to spread up the hill. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're trying to avoid that. Definitely go near a water source. The biggest thing if you're trying to avoid fires is like look on the internet beforehand and see if there are fires present in the area that you're thinking about going hiking. And then if there are, maybe pick a different area for that day. If you encounter a fire that is still burning that someone left, it's really good if you bring extra water because then you can put out that fire. I've definitely encountered that where someone left a fire still smoldering in a wilderness area and we had to put it out. You can also dismantle the fire ring. That's something else you can do. So yeah, I won't get too much more into that because I don't want to take up too much time. And Ashley still has some things left to say. So thank you all for your questions. And I'm sorry my cat kept interrupting.
Thank you so much, Cosmic. Okay. Step 5 of the badge is to go on your adventure. So when you arrive at your trailhead or when you're ready for your trail run, make sure that you do your final checks or even before you leave your house. You would be surprised. Go through your backpack, make sure you have all the gear that you need, make sure you've double checked the weather, make sure that you've told someone where you're going, and then of course remember to follow, leave no trace while you're out on the hike. The last thing that I have is the next steps. A lot of you have asked, what will this recording be called? It will be called Fall Trail Adventure Kickoff, and it will be marked as the Daisy Brownie Junior one. It will be posted to our Girl Scouts of Colorado YouTube page. I will also send a follow-up email in about a week or so with a link to the recording, the activity packet, and a link to the badge request form so that you can request your free badge and bandana when you complete all your requirements. There were a lot of questions, a lot of really great questions in the chat box that we couldn't get to today. I will make sure that we do our best to answer all of those in this activity packet. And make sure that you send in your request for a badge by February 1st of 2021. Happy hiking, everyone. If you have any feedback or questions, you all have my email, but look for my email next week with all of this information. Any last minute questions before we hop off? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. I'm going to stop the recording now.